Now let's see the flow, communication flow. Let's say this is the DaaS. There you have your gateway, then you have your controllers, all those things. Then you have your Microsoft Azure, right? MS Azure, where you have your cloud connector first, which will have outbound connection, and then you have your VDAs. For example, these are a VDAs. Now this is the user. Okay. Now when the user accessing the virtual apps and desktop or the DaaS service, it will directly hit the gateway. From there, it will go to the Cloud Connect Dash service, and it will reach the Cloud Connector, etc. And then eventually he will launch the VDA. Okay. So now let's see what is the process, what is the flow. So how it will work. Okay. So as you can see, the first thing is Cloud Connector establish a outbound connectivity to Citrix Cloud, Citrix DaaS, and the gateway service. Okay, as I told you, this is the Cloud Connector on your location. Either it may be in the Microsoft Azure or on-premise. So it will have a continuous outbound connection to your DaaS service as well as to the there is something called gateway service, right? Here, it will have a continuous outbound connection to your gateway as well as to your dash service. So you may have a question how it is going, what is the communication from, as I told, if you remember here, see cloud.com, and then we have a Citrix workspace.ap.net, right? So similarly, we have to allow one more URL which is related to the gateway, which I missed here. Okay, so this is related to the dash. Okay, this is related to dash. And there is one more URL which is related to gateway also, which I missed in this particular slide. So if you go to the this particular URL, right, you may see here as well. I think these are all things, this NVC, SVC, right? You can see these are all related to the gateway service. Okay. Simple thing, what you can do, star.nssvc.net. If you allow that, it will be enough. However, as I told you, if you wanted to allow it individually, then you have to come and pick these details, and then you have to individually allow it. So going back to our slide, as I told you, first point is Cloud Connector always will establish an outbound connection to your DaaS and your gateway service as well as to the Citrix Cloud. Okay, so now let's say I'm a user. I'm going to the Internet Explorer and I will open the URL, right? Either it may be the web URL, which is pointing to my gateway URL, or I can say workspace URL. For example, let's say vdabus.cloud.com. Okay, so that is the URL. Actually, cloud.com owned by Citrix. So any Citrix DaaS URL, it will end with cloud.com. However, now you can customize that also. You can bring your own domain as well. Okay, so the moment user will get landed in the page, right? That workspace page, he will get the username and password credential prompt, right? So he will enter this is the typical storefront method, like where you will enter your username and password. So once you enter the username and password on that page, so now what will happen? That credential detail now it is here in this, because this is a workspace page, right? Workspace is nothing but your considered storefront. So now when you enter the credential, user enters the credential, that will be passed to your Citrix DaaS. So now DaaS, what it will do, it will again pass that information back to my Citrix Cloud Connector. Okay. And the Cloud Connector, again, it will talk to my Active Directory and it will validate the credential. So if the password is proper and it is validated against my Active Directory, then authentication is successful. So that is the step number 3. It says that if using on-premise Active Directory, Citrix DaaS authenticates user with Active Directory via Cloud Connector channel. So now we are at third stage where authentication is completed. Okay, so now what is the process? Now what will happen in storefront, in our on-premise storefront? When the authentication is completed, then it will enumerate the applications, right? So that is the fourth step. So workspace displays enumerated resource to Citrix DaaS. So in order to do the enumeration, what it will do, for example, after the authentication, the DaaS will check with the DB that for this user, what are the application is available. So once the application details get fetched from the DB, right, the workspace will publish that details, what are the application available for this user. For example, if the user is X, then he should have ABC applications. So if the user is Y, he should have some other applications, etc. So that is step number 4. Now, the step number 5 is user select resource from workspace where dash sends a message to VDA to prepare for an incoming session. For example, let's say now I am seeing my application. For example, user is seeing all the application in his web browser. Now, let's say I'm going to launch Word, MS Word or Notepad or any VDA, for example, let's say my Windows 10 virtual desktop. Okay, so now what will happen? The moment I launch that, right? Like for example, moment I select the application, so the dash, it will send a message to my backend infrastructure, which is my I have the VDA here, right? So that saying that okay, this user is accessing Windows 10. Okay, so please prepare a session for that user. So it will again go back to your cloud connector. So cloud connector again will pass that information to your hypervisor or the public cloud through APIs, etc. Okay, it will say that user is trying to access a Windows 10 or any notepad, etc. So please prepare a session for that user. Okay. So at the same time, the step 6, please note here. So Citrix Cloud, right? So what it will do, it will create a session ticket. Okay, the moment you launch your application or the VDA, Citrix Cloud at the same time, it will create a ticket. Okay, and that ticket will send it to my endpoint. Okay, so what it will do, it will create a ticket. So using Citrix DaaS services, right, it will send that ticket back to my user. So those who already worked with the Citrix NetScaler, you might know that STA and all, right? Some similar concept here. So the cloud will send a ticket to my end user. So now end user in his machine, I will have a session ticket. Okay. So the next step, which is step number 7, the endpoint connects to gateway service and provides the ticket for authentication, which gets validated by Citrix Cloud. This is very, very important. You may have a question now. When it is sending a ticket, right? What information it might be having in the ticket? So in the ticket, it will have the details about the gateway service. Okay. So see, the gateway may be deployed across multiple regions, right? Some gateway, like we have a gateway in UAE, then maybe in India, or then maybe in Australia, etc. So if the user is coming from UAE, then it will ask in the ticket, the information will be there that you should connect to the gateway hosted in UAE. So if the user is coming from Australia, then it should connect to the nearest gateway, which is close to Australia. So all the that details will be there in the ticket. Okay. So as it is mentioned here in the point number 7, the endpoint connects to gateway service and provides the ticket for authentication, which gets validated by Citrix Cloud. So the now endpoint is having ticket. Please try to understand. Now the endpoint is having ticket. Within that ticket, I have the gateway details, right? So now the client, what it will do, it will try to connect to the gateway, Citrix gateway. So the moment it reaches Citrix gateway, right, it will present that ticket. So okay, I have this ticket, and this is the ticket given by Citrix Cloud to use my VDA. So now what it will do, check this. The endpoint connects to the gateway service and provides the ticket for authentication, which gets validated by Citrix Cloud. So now what will happen? The Citrix gateway, it is having the ticket. It will ask Citrix Cloud to authenticate this ticket, because this ticket, anybody can provide ticket, right? Like so let's say some attacker is injecting some tickets to gain access. So then there should be some authorization, right? So to do that authorization, gateway, what it will do, it will ask the Citrix Cloud service to authenticate these tickets. Now the Citrix Cloud will tell, okay, this is the valid ticket. I only provided this ticket, so please proceed. Okay. If this ticket is not belongs to Citrix, like it is not provided by Citrix Cloud, then it will reject it. Then you will not be able to launch your applications. Okay. So this is very important to understand what is happening in the backend. So now going to the Point number 8, the gateway service sends a connection information to the VDA. Okay, so now this is very important. The gateway service sends a information to the VDA, and step number 9, the VDA establishes a direct connection to the gateway service. So now authentication is completed, ticket is validated. Now the gateway, it will try to contact the VDA. Okay. Now you may have a question, how my gateway knows that which VDA I have to connect, right? So again, that information is also there in the ticket. Okay, which we, like as I told you, right? My DaaS will communicate to my VDA for the incoming to be ready for the incoming session. The point number 5. This time, when it is asking to prepare for incoming session, it will get the details of my backend VDA, which VDA is available. So those details will be also shared in the ticket. So the gateway service will get the details of my VDA from the ticket, and then it will try to connect to the VDA. Okay. So now the VDA, what it will do, if direct connection is allowed, for example, from the VDA to the gateway, if there is a direct outbound is allowed, what will happen? It will directly connect to the VDA. If direct connection is not allowed, then it will pass through the cloud connector like this. This is using this channel, as you can see here. So this channel. Now the gateway is having the VDA connection details. Also, it is having the user connection detail also. Now it will bridge between these two, and user will get the VDA. For example, if you see point number 10, if a direct connection between VDA and gateway service is not possible, then VDA utilizes cloud connector. So always it is recommended you allow a direct connection from your VDA to the gateway, okay, because it will reduce the latency. Otherwise, it will again go back to the cloud connector, and from there it will flow to your gateway service. So to avoid extra hop, always allow direct connectivity from your VDA to the gateway URLs. Now coming to the step number 11, the gateway service establishes a VDA connection between endpoint and device. Why? Because the gateway having the details of the VDA session as well as the user session. So it will bind both, and it will create a VDA connection end to end. Now, point number 12, the VDA verifies its license with the Citrix DaaS through Cloud Connector. So once during the connection process, right, it will again verify the license status with the Citrix DaaS, whether this particular session is having valid license or not. For example, let's say if I have 100 license, DaaS license, then 101 user is coming, right? That time it will verify the license for that user. If the license is not available, then it will deny the connection. It will not establish a connection. If the VDA, if the DaaS says that, okay, we do have enough license, then it will get connected after verifying the license. So once the license verification is done, the VDA will get launched, and the point number 13, Citrix DaaS will send all the session policies to the VDA which are deployed. So this is the final phase where all the application, all the policies get pushed to the Citrix Citrix VDA session. So this is the high level architecture, sorry, high level connection flow, how the VDA gets launched whenever user trying to use Citrix DaaS workspace URL. Okay.